The present tense is something you've learned in Spanish 1 and 2, but let's review before we go on to some more difficult concepts in Spanish 3. Regular AR, ER, and IR verbs. These are the only 3 types of verbs in Spanish. AR verbs make up the majority of verbs. ER and IR are lesser common verb endings. Whenever you conjugate a verb, any verb in the present tense, you start with the infinitive. The infinitive is the actual verb that means to do something, which ends in AR, ER, or IR. You drop that ending off and you're left with what's called the stem. Then you add the personal endings. AR endings. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. Don't forget your subject pronouns, the yo, tú, él, usted, nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes. If you don't remember what these mean, make sure that you look them up or ask Profe at another time. ER endings, very similar but not identical. O, es, e, hemos, eis, en. IR endings. Be cautious of IR endings. They're very similar to ER endings with 2 different endings, which are imos and is. So, o, es, e, imos, is, en. So the first thing you have to remember when you're conjugating verbs, especially in your enuncios or on your tarea, you want to make sure that you're paying close attention. Are you using AR verbs, ER verbs, or IR verbs? The present tense is used to express actions, situations that are going on in the present tense, and to express general truths. Pretty simple. This is what you use all the time, things that are going on. Got a handout in class so you can go through and underline the endings on the present tense of the regular verbs. Those are the verbs hablar, beber, and vivir. The present tense is also used to express habitual actions or actions that will take place in the near future. Yo estudio con frecuencia means I study a lot. Pretty habitual. Mañana tengo un examen. Mañana being tomorrow. That's pretty near future. Stem change verbs are another type of verb that you'll be using in the present tense. These are verbs that have a vowel change in the stem. We also call them the boot verbs. Remember? Yo changes to el, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes change. Nosotros doesn't change, nor does vosotros. The 3 common types are E to IE, O to UE, and E to I. You'll know a verb is a stem changing verb when you look it up in the dictionary or in the back of your textbook. If you look up a verb, it'll have in parentheses after the verb the change that it would change to. So if you looked up the verb pensar in the dictionary, you would see an IE in parentheses after it, and that's how you know. Remember that nosotros and vosotros never have a stem change in the present tense. So go ahead and go to your handout that you got in class and look at the verbs pensar, poder, and pedir and underline the stem change. Jugar, common verb, to play a sport, not to play an instrument, to play a sport or to play a game. This is the only verb that has a stem change of its unique form, which is U to UE. Just like the other stem change verbs, the nosotros and vosotros forms do not have a stem change. So juego, juegas, juega, jugamos, jugáis, juegan. It still forms the boot. Verbs that end in UIR, like construir, destruir, incluir, influir. These are typically cognates. So construir, to build or to construct, destruir, to destroy, incluir, to include, influir, to influence, have a spelling change. In these verbs, you add a Y before the personal endings. Personal endings, these are IR verbs. So o, es, e, imos, is, en. You add a Y on all forms except for nosotros and vosotros. So these are another type of boot verb. There are a lot of other verbs that have irregular yo forms. This is yo forms only. Many ER and IR verbs have irregular yo forms in the present tense. For example, verbs that end in CER or CIR change to ZCO in the yo form. So if you look on the handout on the back, you'll see on the right-hand side ending in ZCO. Verbs that end in GER and GIR also have another spelling change, in the yo form. Those yo forms change to JO. Okay, so you'll see in some examples like dirigir, escoger, exigir, proteger. Okay, those are yo form only though, remember. There's some additional verbs that have some just irregular yo form verbs. Think of all your go verbs that you probably have learned in Spanish 1 and 2. Digo, hago, pongo, salgo, traigo, vengo, oigo, caigo. So go ahead and you can look at the top left-hand side of the handout and you'll see some additional verbs there. Those aren't all of them, but there's a few other, those are a few of them. And then in the bottom right-hand corner you'll see the other verbs like caber, saber, and ver. Those have irregular yo forms and they're regular in the other forms. Some verbs with irregular yo forms also have a stem change as well, just to add another component to it. The following verbs here, conseguir, seguir, corregir, torcer, and elegir, have stem changes, as you see in the parentheses, and they have an additional irregular yo form, so make sure you copy those down into your notes. That is it for regular present tense. Go ahead on to the Moodle now and practice the 3 types of present tense types of verbs we learned today.